The silver ship appeared in Earth's sky without warning. It was massive, 3 times larger than any aircraft carrier humanity had ever built. The vessel hung above the United Nations building in New York like a steel cloud, blocking out the sun. Inside the UN emergency session, representatives from every nation stared at the holographic figure projected in the center of the room. The alien was tall and elegant, with blue skin that shimmered like scales. Its eyes were golden, and when it spoke, its voice was smooth and cold. "I am Ambassador Veltone of the Tyrian Empire," the figure said. "We have observed your world for 3 of your months. You possess resources we require. You will submit to imperial rule within 30 of your days, or we will pacify your planet by force." The room erupted in chaos. Diplomats shouted in dozens of languages. The UN Secretary-General Maria Santos stood up and raised her hand for silence. "You're asking us to surrender our entire planet?" she asked. "Without negotiation?" The ambassador's golden eyes showed no emotion. "This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability. Your species has no faster-than-light travel. Your weapons are primitive chemical rockets and kinetic projectiles. You are divided into nearly 200 competing nations. Resistance is illogical. How many worlds have you conquered this way?" asked General Chen from the Chinese delegation. 47 systems, Veltone replied. "All accepted imperial rule after seeing our technological superiority. Those who resisted were pacified within days. War, when necessary, is conducted with honor and according to the codes of civilized combat. Your casualties would be minimal if you follow protocol." "And if we refuse?" Maria asked. "Then you will be made an example. The Empire has brought order to this sector of the galaxy for 3 centuries. We do not tolerate defiance," the hologram flickered. "You have 30 days to prepare your surrender. Use them wisely." The projection vanished and the alien ship disappeared in a flash of light. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the room exploded into argument again. Some delegates demanded immediate surrender. Others called for defiance. Some suggested running and hiding. General William Harris of the United States stood up. He was a large man with gray hair and scars on his weathered face. He had fought in 5 wars over his 40-year career. "We're not surrendering," he said quietly. His voice cut through the noise like a knife. "General, be reasonable," a French diplomat said. "They have faster-than-light travel. Energy weapons. We have nothing that can stop them." "They think we have nothing," General Harris corrected. "But they're wrong about one thing. They said we're divided. They're right. We've spent the last 10,000 years fighting each other over every piece of land, every resource, every idea. Do you know what that made us? Weak?" someone suggested. "Experts," Harris replied. "We're experts at war. Every nation in this room has soldiers who've been told they're too aggressive, too creative, too dangerous for normal military service. Soldiers who don't follow the rules because rules get you killed? What are you suggesting?" Maria asked. "Give me the 30 days, Harris said. "Let me make a phone call." 24 hours later, in a secret facility beneath the Colorado mountains, the first meeting of Project Prometheus took place. Around the table sat representatives from every major military and intelligence agency on Earth. There was Commander James Reaper Morrison from the Navy SEALs, a man who had survived missions that officially never happened. Next to him sat Captain Sarah Chen from British SAS, known for extraction operations that seemed impossible. Across the table was Colonel Dmitry Volkov from Russian Spetsnaz, whose reputation made other soldiers nervous. They were joined by officers from Israeli Sayeret Matkal, French Foreign Legion, Nepalese Gurkhas, Polish Grom, South Korean 707th Special Forces, and a dozen other units. These were the soldiers their governments kept quiet about. The ones who did the jobs that couldn't be mentioned in polite company. General Harris stood at the head of the table. "Gentlemen and ladies, Earth has been given an ultimatum. An alien empire wants us to surrender without a fight. They expect us to follow their rules of civilized warfare. They expect soldiers who march in formation and fight with honor." He smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "We're not going to give them soldiers." Commander Morrison leaned forward. "What's the mission?" "Simple," Harris said. "We have 30 days to prepare. They'll come expecting conventional warfare. Honor. Rules. We're going to show them what humans do to invaders." "They have energy weapons," Captain Chen pointed out. "Shields. Technology we can't match." "They also have psychology," said Dr. Rebecca Foster, the project's chief intelligence officer. She was a civilian, but her expertise in psychological warfare was legendary. I've analyzed their communication patterns. The Tyrian Empire operates on honor codes. Everything is formal, ritualized, predictable. They fought the same way for 300 years. And that's their weakness, Harris continued. They've never fought an enemy that doesn't follow their rules. They've never fought an enemy that treats war like we do. Like what? Colonel Volkov asked. Like survival, Harris said. Like it's personal. Like there are no rules except winning. Over the next 30 days, Earth transformed. Every special forces unit on the planet was activated. Weapons were modified. Tactics were developed. Volunteers lined up by the thousands, but only the most skilled and, honestly, the most unstable were selected. These weren't the soldiers who followed orders without question. These were the ones who improvised, who thought outside every box, who smiled in combat and laughed at danger. They were the ones their commanders had always been slightly afraid of. They trained in abandoned cities, learning urban warfare. They studied alien psychology, looking for fears to exploit. They modified human weapons to be unpredictable, dangerous, terrifying. They expect honor, Commander Morrison told his team, so we give them nightmares. On the 30th day, the UN transmitted Earth's response to the Tyrian Empire. We decline your offer. Come and take our world if you dare. A single converted colony ship launched from Earth. It was crewed by alien standards, barely capable of reaching the nearby moon. On board were 500 humans lightly armed with conventional weapons. Tyrian sensors detected the ship immediately. Admiral Kethrix, commander of the border fleet assigned to pacify Earth, laughed when he saw the readings. One ship? He said to his officers. 500 primitives. This is their resistance? Perhaps it's a ceremonial gesture, his second-in-command suggested. Some species send a token force to show courage before surrendering. How quaint, Kethrix said. Very well. We'll meet them at the designated neutral moon. We'll give them an honorable defeat, then proceed with pacification. This should take less than a day. The Tyrian fleet moved into position around the barren moon. 3 capital ships, 12 frigates, and 5,000 Imperial soldiers. They followed proper protocol, landing their troops in formation on the moon's surface. Kethrix himself descended in the command shuttle. He would personally deliver the terms of surrender after a brief honorable combat. It was the civilized way. The human ship landed on the opposite side of the moon. The 500 humans disembarked and established a small base. Everything seemed to be proceeding according to proper military etiquette. Kethrix strode forward in his ceremonial armor, his honor guard behind him. He would challenge the human commander. They would engage in the ritual combat and, "Yeah, we got your message," a voice called out in rough translation. A human stepped forward. He was shorter than Kethrix, wearing strange camouflage armor and carrying a primitive kinetic weapon. His face was painted black and green. "Here's ours." The human smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Then all hell broke loose. The humans scattered like leaves in a wind. No formation. No honor guard. They simply vanished into the lunar terrain. Within seconds, explosions erupted throughout the Tyrian landing zone. Hidden charges detonated under their feet. Tripwires released shrapnel. Pitfalls opened in the lunar surface. Kethrix's perfect formation dissolved into chaos. His soldiers, trained for honorable combat, found themselves fighting shadows. The humans appeared from nowhere, fired, and disappeared. They used the moon's craters and rocks like they'd lived there for years. "This isn't warfare," Kethrix shouted into his communicator. "This is savagery." From somewhere in the darkness, he heard human laughter. Then a voice on the radio speaking in broken Tyrian. "Welcome to Earth, assholes." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 800 Tyrian soldiers were dead or wounded. The humans had lost 47, and they were singing. Admiral Kethrix sat in his command chair staring at the casualty reports. 800 dead, against 500 primitives with inferior weapons. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was terrifying. "Sir, we've captured one of them," his security chief reported, bringing him to interrogation now. The human was young, maybe 25 by Tyrian estimates. He had burn marks on his arms and a cut across his face, but he was smiling. Actually smiling. The guards threw him into a chair across from Kethrix. "What is your rank?" Kethrix demanded. "Specialist Marcus Webb, U.S. Army Rangers," the human replied in passable Tyrian. "But you can call me Spider." "Why do you fight without honor? Where is your formation? Your discipline?" Spider laughed. It was a harsh sound. Honor? You showed up at our planet and told us to surrender. You want us to make it easy for you? This is how civilized species conduct war, Ketherick said. With rules. With respect for the fallen. We're not civilized, Spider said, still grinning. We're humans. We've been killing each other for 10,000 years. We got really good at it. He leaned forward. You know what my job was before you showed up? Training soldiers to survive behind enemy lines. Teaching them to make bombs from fertilizer and teaching them to kill quietly with their bare hands. You know what we call that? Barbarism, Ketherick said. Tuesday, Spider corrected. That's what we call a normal Tuesday. Ketherick's ordered the human taken away and tortured for information. Standard Imperial protocol. The torture lasted 3 hours before the interrogators gave up. The human never stopped smiling. He just kept making jokes and whistling strange tunes. That night, Spider escaped. He killed 12 guards on his way out, using improvised weapons made from pieces of his cell. He left a message written in Tyrian blood on the Admiral's door. Round 1, humanity. See you in round 2. The next morning, Ketherick transmitted an emergency message to Imperial High Command. Request immediate reinforcements. The humans do not fight according to the codes. They fight like animals that learn to use weapons. They're dangerous. The response came from War Master Zelthar, a legendary Tyrian commander who had won 30 campaigns. Animals cannot defeat Imperial forces. I will arrive in 30 days with a full battle group. Maintain position and observe. During those 30 days, Earth sent 14 more ships. Each carried specialized teams: SEALs, SAS, Spetsnaz, Sayeret Matkal, Gurkhas, Foreign Legion, operators with kill counts that would terrify normal soldiers. They spread throughout the solar system, studying Tyrian patterns, learning their weaknesses, preparing ambushes. They didn't fight like an army. They fought like independent wolf packs, each hunting in their own way. War Master Zelthar arrived with 40 warships and 50,000 soldiers. He was confident. He had studied human history, downloaded from Earth's primitive internet. He'd watch their films about war, read their books about tactics. They're creative, he told his officers. But creativity without discipline is chaos. We will show them the strength of order. He established a forward base on Station Erebus, a captured mining facility orbiting an asteroid. The station was massive, designed to support 10,000 workers. Zelthar turned it into a fortress, shields, automated defenses, patrols every hour. By Imperial standards, it was impregnable. From here, we will launch our assault on Earth, he announced. Let the humans come. Let them break themselves against our walls. What Zelthar didn't know was that humans were already inside. For 3 weeks, small teams had been infiltrating the station. They came disguised as refugees, as maintenance workers, as captured prisoners being transported. They moved through the station's vast maintenance tunnels, sleeping in unused storage rooms, eating stolen rations. Commander Sarah Chen led the infiltration. She had 30 operators inside the station, each an expert in demolitions, sabotage, or silent killing. They gathered intelligence, mapped the station, identified key targets. We're not going to attack from outside, she told her team. We're going to rot them from inside. On the chosen night, all 30 teams struck simultaneously. Power stations exploded. Life support systems were sabotaged. Fire suppression was disabled. The armory detonated in a massive explosion that ripped through 3 decks. Tyrian soldiers ran through burning corridors, trying to contain the damage. But everywhere they turned, they found more chaos. Bulkheads sealed, trapping units. Gravity fluctuated wildly. The station's AI was hacked, broadcasting human war cries and death metal music through every speaker. In the command center, Zelthar watched his perfect fortress fall apart. How? He demanded. How did they get inside? Sir, we're detecting explosive charges throughout the station, an officer reported. They must have been placed over weeks. They were living inside our walls. The station's reactor went critical. Zelthar had no choice but to order evacuation. As his ships pulled away, Station Erebus exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Human casualties, 23. They'd been killed during the escape, fighting rearguard actions to let their teammates reach the evacuation ships. Tyrian casualties, 4,000 dead, another 6,000 wounded. The station, completely destroyed. Zelthar stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the debris field that had been his fortress. A transmission came through on an open channel. It was a human voice speaking in broken but understandable Tyrian. Station Erebus is claimed for Earth. Thanks for the fireworks show. We particularly enjoyed the part where your reactor exploded. Very dramatic. It was Commander Chen. Somehow she was still alive and mocking him. Zelthar tried to track the transmission, but it was bouncing off a dozen relays. By the time his technicians traced it, the humans would be gone. But the transmission continued. You know what the difference is between your soldiers and ours, War Master? Your soldiers fight for honor and glory. Our soldiers fight because they love it. They volunteer for these missions. They compete for the chance to hunt you. The transmission cut off, replaced by a video broadcast. It showed edited footage of human victories, set to driving music with heavy drums and electric guitars. Humans in combat moving like dancers of death. Explosions, ambushes, the fall of Station Erebus. It was propaganda, but it was effective. Within days, Tyrian soldiers were watching it secretly. Some found it terrifying. Others found it compelling. 3 Tyrian crews requested transfers away from the front lines. They didn't want to face the Terran madmen. Zelthar realized he had a new problem. His enemy wasn't just fighting a military campaign. They were fighting a psychological one, and they were winning. He decided to try a different approach. He would capture a human leader and learn from them. Understand their thinking. Perhaps find a weakness. It took 2 weeks, but his special forces finally captured a high-value target. Captain Sarah Chen herself, caught during a daring raid on a supply depot. This time Zelthar didn't use torture. He spoke to her directly, warrior to warrior. Why do you fight this way? He asked. You could challenge us honorably. Die with dignity. Chen looked at him with calm, steady eyes. Dignity? You came to our world uninvited, told us to surrender our freedom, our home. You wanted to conquer us. And now you're surprised we're not playing by your rules? War has rules for a reason, Zelthar said. To minimize suffering. To preserve honor. Honor is something you give to your equals, Chen replied. You didn't treat us as equals. You treated us as primitives to be pacified. So we showed you what these primitives can do. Your tactics are chaos. Our tactics are survival, Chen corrected. You've been fighting other civilized species for 300 years. Species that follow your codes fight your way. You know what we've been doing for 10,000 years? Fighting each other. 7 billion humans on one planet, all competing for resources. We've invaded every continent, conquered every territory, fought over every ideology. She leaned forward. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being civilized, War Master. We became dominant by being the best at killing. And then we spent 10,000 years getting even better at it, fighting each other in every possible way. You're not fighting a primitive species. You're fighting a species that made war into an art form. Zelthar was silent for a long moment. You were exchanged for 3 of my officers, he finally said. You're being released. Generous of you. No, Zelthar said quietly. Strategic. I'm sending you back because I want you to deliver a message to your leaders. Tell them I'm requesting a negotiated settlement. This war benefits neither of us. Chen smiled, but this time it was sad. War Master, we're not the ones who need convincing. You need to convince your emperor, and from what I've seen of the Tyrian Empire, your emperor doesn't negotiate with primitives. She was right. When Zelthar transmitted his recommendation for peace talks, the Imperial High Command rejected it immediately. Instead, they sent reinforcements, the Imperial Guard, led by Princess Commander Syrinx, the Emperor's own daughter. Her message was clear. Pacify Earth or destroy it. The Empire does not negotiate with savages. Princess Commander Syrinx was nothing like the commanders who had come before. She was young, only 30 by Tyrian standards, but she'd been trained from birth for command. Her scales were a deeper blue than most Tyrians, and her golden eyes held no mercy. She arrived with 100 warships and 200,000 Imperial Guard troops. These weren't regular soldiers. They were the Emperor's elite. Veterans who'd fought in the worst campaigns across the Empire. They wore black armor instead of silver and carried weapons that could cut through steel. My father sent Admiral Kethrix, and he failed, Syrinx announced to her assembled fleet. He sent War Master Zelthar, and he requested negotiation. I will not fail. I will not negotiate. I will end this. Her fleet took up positions around Earth. For the first time, the planet itself was directly threatened. Syrinx's flagship carried a planet-killer weapon, a last resort that could crack a world's crust and boil its oceans. On Earth, alarms rang in every major city. This was it. The final battle. Humanity had bloodied the Empire's nose, but now they faced annihilation. General Harris called an emergency session of Project Prometheus. Every remaining Special Forces commander gathered in the Colorado facility, but now they were joined by conventional military leaders from every nation. Admirals, generals, air marshals, everyone who commanded anything that could fight. "We can't win this with guerrilla tactics alone," Harris said, his voice heavy. "They've brought enough firepower to glass the planet. We need a new strategy." "We fight them in orbit," Admiral Zhang of the Chinese Space Force said. "Every ship we have. Every weapon. We make them pay for every meter they advance and we'll lose," someone pointed out. "Their technology is 50 years ahead of ours." "Then we'll lose fighting," Commander Morrison said. "Better than dying on our knees." Dr. Foster stood up. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. "There might be another way. We've been monitoring their communications. The regular troops are already demoralized. They're afraid of us. But the Imperial Guard, they're different. They're proud. They think their elite status makes them invincible. So?" someone asked. "So pride is a weakness," Foster said. "We can use it." The plan was desperate and insane. Earth would commit every ship to a direct orbital battle, drawing the Tyrian fleet into close combat. While the space battle raged, Special Forces teams would target the flagship, not to destroy it, but to capture it, to reach Princess Cyrix herself and force a negotiation with her as a hostage. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. But they also knew they had no choice. "One more thing," General Harris said as the meeting ended. "If this fails, if they deploy the planet killer, I want you all to know." "It's been an honor." Commander Morrison shook his head. "Don't get sentimental on us now, General. We're not dead yet." 3 days later, the battle began. Earth launched every ship it had. Military vessels, armed civilian craft, converted cargo haulers bristling with missiles and railguns. They were hundreds, but they faced thousands. The sky above Earth became a light show of weapons fire and explosions. Tyrian energy beams cut through Earth ships like paper. But the humans kept coming. When their ships were damaged, they rammed Tyrian vessels. When their weapons ran out, they used nuclear bombs set on proximity fuses. They fought with a desperation the Tyrians had never encountered. "They're not retreating," Cyrix observed from her command throne. "Why aren't they retreating?" "They have nowhere to retreat to, Princess," her second officer replied. "Their planet is behind them. They fight or they die. Then they die," Cyrix said coldly. "All forward batteries fire at will." But while the space battle raged, 50 of Earth's best operators were making their approach in a stealth shuttle. It was a captured Tyrian vessel, modified heavily. Commander Morrison led the team personally, along with operators from a dozen nations. They drifted in the debris field, powered down, virtually invisible. Slowly, carefully, they approached the flagship. When they were close enough, they magnetic clamped onto the hull and began cutting their way inside. "Remember," Morrison whispered into the comm, "we're not here to fight. We're here for the princess. Get her, get out, don't die." Questions? "Just one," Captain Chen replied. "She was part of the team, still healing from torture wounds. When this is over, can I sleep for a week?" "You can sleep for a month," Morrison promised. They entered the flagship through a maintenance airlock, bypassing security with codes they'd captured from previous battles. Inside, the ship was chaos. Crew members rushed everywhere, managing the battle. Nobody looked at the maintenance corridors. The team split into 5 groups, each taking a different route to the command deck. They moved silently, avoiding patrols, taking down isolated guards with tranquilizer darts. They couldn't risk guns, not yet. Any loud noise would bring hundreds of soldiers. Morrison's group made it within 50 meters of the command deck when they encountered a full security patrol. 20 Imperial guards in their black armor, weapons ready. There was no way around them. "Well," Morrison said, switching his weapon to lethal. "So much for stealth. Remember, boys and girls, when in doubt, cause chaos." The firefight lasted 30 seconds. It was brutal in close quarters, fought in a narrow corridor where neither side could maneuver. Morrison took a beam shot to the shoulder but kept fighting. By the end, all 20 guards were down, but Morrison had lost 4 of his team. Alarms blared throughout the ship. They were out of time. "All teams converge on command deck now," Morrison ordered. "Full assault!" The humans stormed the command center from 5 different entrances simultaneously. The Imperial guards fought back fiercely, but they were caught completely off guard. How could primitives be on their flagship? How could they penetrate the most secure ship in the fleet? Morrison fought his way through the chaos, his eyes locked on one target. The command throne where Princess Syrinx sat, surrounded by her personal guard. She was standing now, an energy sword in her hand, her golden eyes wide with shock. "For Earth!" Morrison roared and threw himself forward. Syrinx met him with her sword, and they fought hand-to-hand on the command deck while the battle raged around them. She was faster, stronger, trained in Tyrian martial arts that had been perfected over centuries, but Morrison fought dirty. He kicked, bit, used every street-fighting trick he'd learned in 40 years of combat. Finally, Captain Chen shot Syrix's sword from her hand with a perfectly placed round. Morrison tackled the princess, slamming her to the deck and pressing his pistol to her head. "Everybody stop," he shouted in Tyrian, "or your princess dies." The fighting froze. Hundreds of guns pointed at Morrison and his team. Morrison's people pointed their guns back. It was a stalemate, and everyone knew it. Syrinx looked up at Morrison with those golden eyes. "You dare threaten a member of the Imperial family?" "Lady, I'd threaten the Emperor himself if I had to," Morrison said. "You came to our world. You threatened our families. You brought weapons that could kill billions. Yeah, I dare." "You cannot win," Syrinx said. "Even if you kill me, my fleet will destroy your planet." "Maybe," Morrison admitted. "But you'll be dead, and we'll take as many of you with us as we can. Is that what you want? Is that worth it?" For the first time, Morrison saw doubt in those golden eyes. "Captain Chen," Morrison said, not taking his eyes off Syrinx. "Show her." Chen activated a holographic display. It showed Earth from orbit, but with overlays. Population centers, military bases, cities full of civilians, billions of dots, each representing a human life. "That's who you're fighting," Morrison said quietly. "Not just us. Not just soldiers. Every single one of those dots is someone who's willing to die rather than surrender. Children who'll grow up learning to fight you. Old people who'll booby-trap their homes. We're not a military, princess. We're a species at war." Another overlay appeared, showing casualty numbers. Tyrian losses 2.3 million. "Human losses 4.7 million. We're losing," Syrinx said. "Are you?" Chen asked. "Because here's the math. You've lost 2 million soldiers. How many troops does the Empire have total? 15 million across 47 systems? And we have 8 billion people on Earth alone. Even if you kill 2 of us for every one of yours, you'll run out of soldiers before we do." Morrison leaned closer to Syrinx. "You can win battles, princess, but you can't win the war. Not against us. Because we don't quit. We don't surrender. We just keep coming, generation after generation, until either you're gone or we are. My father will never negotiate with you." "Then talk to him," Morrison said. "Tell him what you've seen here. Tell him what it'll cost to conquer us. Tell him there's another option." Syrinx was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the battle in space continued. Earthships were dying, but so were Tyrian vessels. It was becoming the bloodiest battle in Imperial history. "Release me," Syrinx finally said. "I will. I will speak with my father. I make no promises." "That's all we ask," Morrison said, and slowly lowered his gun. As the humans withdrew to their shuttle, Syrinx watched them go. They moved with practiced efficiency, covering each other, weapons ready. Even in retreat, they were dangerous. She touched her communicator. "Father, I need to speak with you privately. It's about Earth." Emperor Thrax had ruled the Tyrian Empire for 40 years. He was old now, his blue scales fading to gray, but his mind was still sharp. He sat on his throne on the Imperial homeworld, millions of light years from Earth, and listened to his daughter's report. "They captured you?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "On your own flagship? In the middle of your fleet?" 50 of them, father," Syrinx replied via hologram. 50 against 200,000, and they reached me. They moved through our ship like ghosts. They knew our security protocols better than our own guards. And you let them go? I negotiated their retreat in exchange for this communication. Father, I know you're angry, but you need to hear what I learned. These humans, they're not like any species we've faced. They don't fight for honor or glory. They fight for survival, and they're terrifyingly good at it. They're primitives with chemical weapons. They're survivors with 10,000 years of experience in warfare, Syrinx corrected. Every single human on that planet has been competing since birth. Their education system is based on competition. Their economies reward aggression. Their entertainment glorifies conflict. They've built an entire civilization around the concept of struggle. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Father, they've been killing each other for their entire history. Not occasionally like us, constantly. There hasn't been a single year in their recorded history without war somewhere on their planet. They have over 15,000 distinct words for different types of killing. They've invented weapons we couldn't imagine, and tactics we've never encountered because they needed them to fight each other. All the more reason to eliminate them, Thrax said. At what cost? Cyrix asked. We've lost 2 million soldiers trying to pacify one planet. The other conquered worlds are watching. If we can't defeat primitives without massive casualties, what does that say about Imperial strength? And Father, even if we win, even if we crack their planet and kill every human, the message it sends to the galaxy is that the Empire is so weak, we had to commit genocide to defeat a pre-FTL species. The Emperor was silent for a long time. What do you recommend? Negotiation, Cyrix said. Not surrender, not defeat. Partnership. Bring them into the Empire as equals. Use their tactical knowledge to improve our military. Father, imagine having human advisors training our forces. Imagine what the Imperial military could become if we combined our technology with their creativity. They would never agree. They've proven they'd rather die than surrender. They would agree to partnership, Cyrix said. I spoke with their commander. He didn't want to kill me. He wanted to talk. They don't hate us, Father. They're just not willing to be conquered. There's a difference. Another long silence. Finally, Thrax spoke. I will consider it. But first I want proof that continued war would be unwinnable. Order one final assault on their moon base. Show me definitively whether they can be defeated conventionally. Cyrix wanted to argue, but she knew her father. He needed to see it with his own eyes. As you command, Father. The assault on Luna Base was planned as the decisive battle. Cyrix would personally lead 50,000 Imperial Guard troops in a ground assault against Earth's lunar defenses. Intelligence suggested approximately 5,000 human soldiers defended the base. 10-1 odds. By any military standard, it should be a slaughter in the Empire's favor. The Imperial Guard landed in perfect formation, their black armor gleaming in the harsh lunar sunlight. Cyrix stood at the front, her energy sword drawn. This would be a traditional assault, the kind the Empire had won 1,000 times across the galaxy. For the Empire, she called, and her troops surged forward. The humans met them with everything they had. Railguns, missiles, landmines buried in the lunar regolith, machine gun nests hidden in crater rims. But most of all, they met them with fury. The battle quickly descended into close-quarters chaos. The lunar terrain was a nightmare of craters, tunnels, and ancient lava tubes. The Imperial Guard's superior technology meant little in narrow tunnels where combat came down to knives and fists. And in close combat, the humans were terrifying. Cyrix watched in horror as her elite troops were held at bay by defenders who simply refused to die. Humans with missing limbs kept fighting. Humans with fatal wounds would grab Tyrian soldiers and detonate grenades. Humans would sing battle songs as they charged into overwhelming fire. Princess, we're taking massive casualties, her second officer reported. 30% dead or wounded, and we've only advanced 500 meters. At this rate, an explosion cut off his words. A hidden bomb had detonated in the tunnel beside them, killing a dozen guards. From the smoke, a human emerged, bloodied and burned, but still carrying a rifle. Cyrix recognized him. Commander Morrison, the one who'd captured her. He didn't fire. He just looked at her with those strange, determined eyes. You should leave, he said in broken Tyrian. This is going to get worse. I will not retreat, Cyrix replied. Morrison shrugged. Okay, your funeral. He melted back into the smoke. The battle raged for 3 days. It was the longest continuous combat operation in Imperial history. The humans fought from prepared positions, then fell back to the next line of defense. They booby-trapped everything they left behind. They flooded tunnels. They depressurized sections where Tyrians had taken cover. On the third day, Cyrix stood in a captured command post, looking at the casualty reports. 20,000 Imperial Guards dead, another 15,000 wounded. They'd advanced 3 kilometers into a base that was 20 kilometers across, and the humans were still fighting. She could hear them singing in the tunnels below, singing while they died. A transmission came through from one of her forward units. The commander's voice was shaking. Princess, we've got a problem. The humans have fortified the next section with some kind of improvised fortress. They're not attacking. They're just waiting, and they keep broadcasting a message. What message? They're asking if we want to talk. Syrinx felt something break inside her. These humans had fought for 3 days without rest. They'd lost thousands of their own people. And now in the middle of a battle they were offering to talk. She made her way to the forward position, insisting on going personally despite her officers' protests. In a large crater she found herself facing Commander Morrison again. He was wounded, bandaged in a dozen places, but still standing. Behind him, maybe 100 humans remained, armed and ready. "You wanted to talk?" Syrinx asked. Morrison nodded. "Your troops are brave, Princess. The best we've faced. But this isn't working for either of us. You've lost 20,000 soldiers trying to take one base. We've lost 3,000 defending it. At this rate, we'll all be dead in a week. What are you proposing?" "Ceasefire," Morrison said simply. "Go back to your father. Tell him what you've seen. Tell him that humans don't quit. We can't be conquered by force. The only way to beat us is to kill every single one of us, and we'll take millions of you with us. And if he refuses?" Morrison's expression hardened. "Then we keep fighting. We teach our children to fight. Their children will fight. Their children's children will fight. We'll turn this into a war that lasts centuries, and eventually, even if you win, the Empire will be so weakened that other species will conquer you." Syrinx looked at the humans behind Morrison. They were exhausted, wounded, barely standing, but not one of them looked defeated. Their eyes held the same determination she'd seen in Morrison's. "I need to show my father something," she said slowly. "I need him to understand what you are." "Then show him," Morrison replied. He activated his helmet camera. "Tell your Emperor what you've seen here." Syrinx turned to face the camera. For a moment she was silent, gathering her thoughts. Then she spoke. "Father, I'm standing in the ruins of Luna Base after 3 days of combat. Around me are the best soldiers in the Empire, and before me are humans who've been fighting without rest, without reinforcements, without hope of victory. They've lost more than half their forces, and they're still offering to negotiate, not because they're weak, but because they want to give us a chance to leave with our honor intact." She gestured to the battlefield. "You wanted proof, here it is. We can kill them all eventually, but it will cost us everything. The Empire will bleed for years. And Father, I've come to realize something. These humans don't fight like primitives. They fight like survivors. And survival instinct is more powerful than any honor code we've ever created." Behind her, one of the humans began to sing. It was a slow, mournful song in their native language. One by one, the other humans joined in. Even Morrison, still holding his rifle, sang. Syrinx recognized it from the intelligence files. It was something called the Star-Spangled Banner, an old American anthem. But more than that, it was a war song, and as the humans sang, wounded and dying, they never took their eyes off the Tyrian forces. "This is what we're fighting, Father," Syrinx said quietly. "A species that sings while it bleeds. A species that won't quit even when defeat is certain. We can destroy them, but we cannot conquer them. The question is, do we want them as enemies forever or as allies?" The transmission ended. In his throne room light years away, Emperor Thrax watched it 3 times. Then he summoned his High Council. "Send a message to Princess Syrinx," he said finally. "Offer the humans a ceasefire." The ceasefire was declared on a cold November morning, 18 months after first contact. The guns fell silent. The ships pulled back. And for the first time since the war began, humans and Tyrians met without violence. The treaty negotiations took place on a neutral space station, hastily constructed by both sides. Emperor Thrax arrived personally, something that shocked the entire galaxy. Emperors didn't negotiate with primitives. But Thrax was old and wise enough to know when tradition needed to be broken. He walked into the negotiation chamber and found himself facing not diplomats in formal dress, but soldiers. Commander Morrison, Captain Chen, General Harris, and a dozen others. They wore their combat uniforms, their scars visible. These were the people who'd fought his empire to a standstill. "You didn't send diplomats," Thrax observed. "We didn't have time to train any," General Harris replied. "We've spent the last year at war. Besides, we figured you'd want to meet the people who actually did the fighting." Thrax found himself almost smiling. Humans, he was learning, didn't do anything the traditional way. "Very well," he said. "Let us speak plainly. My daughter tells me you cannot be conquered. I've seen the evidence, I agree. But Earth is still a primitive world by galactic standards. You need our technology. We need something from you. So let us find terms acceptable to both." The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. In the end, A treaty emerged that surprised everyone. Earth would not become an imperial subject. Instead, it would be an independent allied state with the same rights as any other imperial world. Earth would gain access to Tyrian technology, FTL drives, energy weapons, medical advances. In exchange, Earth would provide military advisors to the Empire. That last part caused confusion among the other imperial species. Why would the mighty Empire need human military advisors? Commander Morrison explained it simply. You've been fighting the same way for 300 years, fighting species that follow the same honor codes, the same tactics. But the galaxy is changing. Not everyone will follow your rules. You need to learn how to fight dirty, how to think creatively, how to win when you're outnumbered and outgunned. You want us to teach you to be uncivilized, Princess Cyric said. She'd become the human liaison, the bridge between two very different cultures. We want you to learn to adapt, Morrison corrected. Civilization is great when everyone follows the rules. But what happens when someone doesn't? You need to be ready. The first human military advisors spread throughout the Imperial forces 6 months later. They were carefully selected, experienced operators who could teach without terrifying their students too much. They taught guerrilla warfare, improvised explosives, psychological operations, and a dozen other tactics the Empire had never encountered. At first, the Tyrian soldiers were horrified. This wasn't warfare. It was chaos. But gradually they began to understand. War wasn't about honor. It was about achieving objectives. And sometimes the most dishonorable tactic was the most effective. 2 years after the treaty, the Empire faced its first real test. A species called the Kreth launched a surprise attack on an Imperial border world. The Kreth were aggressive, savage, and they didn't follow the codes of civilized combat. They were, in human terms, space pirates. The Imperial response was traditional at first: formal fleets, honor challenges, predictable tactics. The Kreth laughed and kept raiding. Then the Empire deployed forces trained by human advisors. The Kreth found their bases infiltrated and sabotaged. Their communications were hacked and filled with demoralizing propaganda. Their ships were ambushed by Imperial forces using hit-and-run tactics. When they tried to raid a colony world, they found the population armed and waiting, taught by human advisors how to defend themselves. The war ended in 4 months, compared to similar conflicts that had lasted years. The Kreth sued for peace, shocked by the Empire's new willingness to fight unconventionally. Across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. The Tyrian Empire had changed. It was still powerful, still vast, but now it was unpredictable, dangerous in new ways. And behind that change were humans. Earth itself transformed rapidly with access to Imperial technology. FTL ships were built, colonies were established on Mars and in the outer solar system. Humans spread into space with the same aggressive energy they'd shown on Earth, but they never forgot the war. Memorials were built on Luna Base, where so many had died. Commander Morrison retired with full honors, his body too broken by wounds to continue active service. He became an instructor, teaching the next generation of human operators. Captain Chen took command of Earth's first FTL-capable warship. She named it Defiance, and its maiden voyage was a patrol of the Sol system's borders. Just in case, General Harris became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. His appointment caused quite a stir. An ambassador who was also a general? But Harris understood politics better than most diplomats. He knew that in the galaxy, strength commanded respect. 5 years after the treaty, a new threat emerged. The Zalthine Collective, a hive mind species from beyond the frontier, began expanding aggressively into known space. They didn't negotiate. They didn't follow codes. They simply consumed everything in their path. The Galactic Council debated for weeks, paralyzed by traditional thinking. Then Emperor Thrax made an unprecedented announcement. The Zalthine do not fight with honor, he declared. They fight for survival and expansion. To defeat them, we must set aside our traditional methods. Therefore, I am requesting Earth's assistance in forming a joint task force. The message reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. General Harris, now Ambassador Harris, received it in his office overlooking Lake Geneva. He read it 3 times, then smiled. Looks like they need the Maniacs again, he muttered. He made a call to Commander Morrison, who was teaching a class at the new Terran Military Academy. James, you busy? Teaching kids how to blow stuff up, Morrison replied. Why? The galaxy needs saving. Again, you interested? Morrison looked at his class, full of eager young soldiers learning the arts of unconventional warfare. He thought about the scars on his body, the friends he'd lost, the price of war. Then he thought about the alternative, a galaxy consumed by an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with. "I'll need to clear my schedule," he said. "And James?" "This time I'm bringing the good students." Within a month, Earth assembled the largest military expedition in its short spacefaring history. 10,000 operators, advisors, and combat specialists, not just from the original special forces, but from the new generation that had grown up knowing Earth was part of a larger galaxy. They were joined by 50,000 Imperial forces, all trained in human tactics, and for the first time, troops from other species volunteered to serve under human commanders. They'd heard the stories. They wanted to learn from the best. The Zalthine War lasted 3 years. It was brutal, costly, and nothing like the traditional galactic warfare. The humans taught the galaxy how to fight a total war, asymmetric tactics, scorched earth policies, psychological operations that broke hive mind cohesion. When it ended, the Zalthine had been pushed back beyond the frontier. Their expansion halted. But the cost was high. 20,000 humans died, 100,000 Imperial soldiers, millions of civilians caught in the crossfire. Morrison survived barely. He'd taken a Zalthine weapon strike that had nearly killed him. As he recovered in a hospital ship, Princess Syrinx came to visit. "We won," she said simply. "We survived," Morrison corrected. "There's a difference. My father wants to honor you, make you a lord of the Empire or something equally ceremonial." Morrison laughed, then winced at the pain. "Tell your father I appreciate it, but no thanks. I'm a soldier, not a politician. What will you do now?" "Go home, rest, maybe actually retire this time." He looked at her. "What about you, Princess? Still think bringing humans into the galaxy was a good idea?" Syrinx was quiet for a moment. "You terrify half the species in the galaxy, you know. They call you the madmen of Sol. They tell stories about human operators that sound like horror tales." "And?" Morrison prompted. "And I wouldn't want you as enemies," Syrinx admitted, "but as allies." "As partners?" "You've changed the galaxy, Commander Morrison. You've shown us that survival sometimes requires setting aside honor, that winning isn't always pretty, but it's better than losing, that there are worse things than chaos." "Like extinction," Morrison said. "Exactly." After Morrison left, after the fleets dispersed and the soldiers went home, the galaxy settled into a new normal. Earth was no longer a primitive backwater. It was a power to be respected, feared, and in some cases admired. Human advisors became sought after throughout the galaxy. Humans designed security systems, trained bodyguards, consulted on military strategy. The species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare found a niche in a galaxy that suddenly needed to learn those skills. But Earth never forgot where it came from. Never forgot that it had come within days of extinction. Every child learned the history of the First Contact War, the desperate battles, the impossible victories. And in military academies across the planet, a new motto was adopted, words that captured humanity's approach to warfare and survival. We didn't send soldiers. We sent the ones who loved the fight,